Before a man opens his heart, there are hidden truths about what truly makes him ready for love. Countless women struggle with this puzzle. They invest their time, their energy, their hopes in relationships with men who seem caring and present, yet somehow remain emotionally elusive, like trying to embrace morning mist that dissipates just as you reach for it. Today, I'm sharing the 3 things men really need before they fall in love. Insights that most people overlook, but that can make all the difference. These aren't techniques or strategies, but fundamental conditions that create the emotional soil in which love can grow. Make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss these key insights. And let's dive into the first essential need that sets the stage for genuine love.
Emotional readiness and the courage of vulnerability. There exists within the male psyche a fortress built throughout years of social conditioning, past hurts, and cultural messaging about strength and invulnerability. Before any man can fall in love truly and completely, he must be willing to lower the drawbridge of this fortress and risk the exquisite danger of being known in his entirety. This emotional readiness forms the first and most crucial prerequisite for male love. The ancient Stoic philosopher Seneca wrote, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." For men, falling in love represents such a beginning, but it requires the end of emotional self-protection that may have served him well in other contexts, but becomes a barrier to intimacy. This isn't about weakness or losing masculinity. It's about the courage required to be authentically human in another's presence. Unlike women, who typically develop emotional literacy through social connection, men often arrive at emotional readiness through internal work, processing past relationships, grief, disappointment, and the gradual acceptance of their own vulnerability as a source of strength rather than weakness. This internal journey cannot be rushed or facilitated by someone else. It must be completed within the man himself before he can offer his whole heart to another. This emotional readiness manifests in specific ways that women can recognize. The emotionally ready man doesn't retreat when conversations become deep or meaningful. He doesn't change the subject when feelings arise, nor does he become uncomfortable with authentic emotion, his own or yours. He's done enough inner work to distinguish between healthy vulnerability and emotional manipulation, allowing him to remain open without losing his boundaries. The neurochemical basis of this readiness is fascinating. Studies from Yale University show that men who've developed emotional courage have different stress hormone patterns, lower baseline cortisol levels that allow for the oxytocin and vasopressin release necessary for bonding. Men who haven't developed this readiness remain in subtle fight or flight mode around emotional intimacy, making deep attachment neurologically difficult regardless of their conscious desires. Recognizing this quality requires paying attention to how a man handles emotional moments. Does he stay present when you share something vulnerable, or does he immediately offer solutions to make the emotion go away? Can he share his own uncertainties and fears without immediately qualifying them or turning them into jokes? Does he seem comfortable with the natural rhythms of emotional intimacy, or does he always redirect towards safer ground? To recognize emotional readiness and a courage of vulnerability, pay attention to how he responds during deep, meaningful conversations. A man who stays present, listens, and shares his own feelings demonstrates that he has cultivated the ability to be emotionally open. Encourage a safe space for emotions by respecting his fears and past wounds without rushing to fix them or judge, reinforcing trust without overstepping boundaries. Look for signs of emotional maturity. He can face disappointment, acknowledge mistakes, or discuss past hurts without deflecting or blaming. The emotionally ready man has learned what the philosopher Rumi knew when he wrote, "The wound is the place where the light enters you." He's willing to let his own wounds be visible because he's discovered they're not sources of shame, but gateways to authentic connection. This prerequisite cannot be developed by anyone else. It's inner work that each man must complete in his own time and way. Without this foundation, even the most wonderful relationship cannot progress to genuine love, no matter how compatible you might be in other ways. But when this readiness exists, it creates the emotional soil in which our second prerequisite can take root.
Number 2, respect for his authentic self and autonomous nature. This isn't about ego or dominance, but about something far more profound. The requirement that love enhance rather than diminish his essential nature as a man. My friend Charles, now in his 70s, described the moment he knew he was falling in love with his second wife, Eleanor. He disagreed with the decision I was making about my retirement investments, but the way she expressed it made me feel respected rather than criticized. She said, "I trust your judgment completely, and I wonder if you've considered this angle." It was the first time someone had challenged my thinking while simultaneously communicating faith in my competence. This prerequisite often becomes more pronounced with age, as men accumulate decades of experience and develop strong senses of their own judgment and capabilities. The man who spent 40 years building expertise in his field, raising children, or navigating life's challenges needs to feel that this accumulated wisdom is recognized and valued, not dismissed or micromanaged by a partner who means well but inadvertently communicates disrespect. This isn't fragile ego, it's neurobiological reality. Men's stress responses to perceived disrespect create cortisol spikes that make emotional bonding literally impossible until the stress subsides. But respect goes deeper than avoiding criticism. It involves actively appreciating the particular way a man approaches life, his problem-solving style, his values, his unique strengths. The woman who can see and articulate what she admires about his character, judgment, and approach to challenges creates an environment where his love can flourish. This appreciation for his autonomous nature doesn't mean accepting poor behavior or abandoning your own needs. Instead, it means recognizing that healthy masculinity often involves a desire to contribute, protect, and provide, not from outdated gender roles, but from genuine care expressed through action and responsibility. The man who feels deeply respected begins to see his partner not as someone who might limit or control him, but as someone who enhances his ability to be his best self. This creates what psychologists call approach motivation, the desire to move toward rather than away from deeper intimacy. This respect must be authentic.
Men are typically skilled at detecting patronizing or manipulative appreciation, but when genuine, it creates a safety that allows love to deepen. The man begins to associate his partner with feeling valued and capable rather than judged and managed. Practically, this prerequisite reveals itself in how a woman responds to a man's decisions, problem-solving approaches, and areas of expertise. Does she trust his judgment in his areas of strength? Does she appreciate his contributions, even when they differ from her preferred methods? Can she express disagreement without undermining his sense of competence? The respect that creates love isn't about subservience or losing your own voice. Quite the opposite. It's about recognizing that masculine identity often centers around competence and contribution, and that honoring these qualities creates the emotional safety necessary for a man to risk the vulnerability that love requires. Have you ever noticed how your respect, or lack of it, affects the men in your life? Drop a comment sharing your experience and save this video to reflect on it later. These insights can completely change how love grows when both partners feel truly seen and valued. When both emotional readiness and authentic respect exist, the foundation is set for our third and final prerequisite. This element involves the meeting of minds and hearts around life's deepest questions, creating the intellectual and spiritual intimacy that makes love not just possible, but inevitable.
Number 3. Shared vision and intellectual spiritual resonance. Before a man can fall deeply in love, he must sense that a woman not only understands his dreams and values, but can walk alongside him as a true partner in the most meaningful aspects of his existence. For men seeking love in their mature years, this intellectual and spiritual resonance often becomes the decisive factor that transforms attraction into devotion. This prerequisite manifests differently for each man, depending on what brings meaning to his life. For some, it's philosophical or spiritual compatibility, finding someone who shares or complements his understanding of existence's deeper questions. For others, it's about life goals and values, discovering someone who envisions a similar future and holds compatible beliefs about what makes life worth living. The man considering love at this stage of life isn't just seeking companionship for today, but partnership for whatever years remain. He needs to sense that a woman shares not only his current interests, but his hopes for how they might spend their time together, what kind of life they might build, what legacy they might leave. This shared vision creates what psychologists call future orientation bonding, the powerful attachment that forms when two people can envision growing together rather than simply aging side by side. It's the difference between parallel lives that happen to intersect and truly intertwined destinies that enhance each other. The spiritual dimension of this prerequisite often becomes particularly important with age and experience. Many men find themselves grappling with questions of mortality, meaning, and transcendence in ways they might have avoided in their younger years.
The woman who can engage authentically with these deeper dimensions, whether through formal religion, nature-based spirituality, philosophical inquiry, or simple wonder at existence, offers something invaluable, a companion for the soul's journey. The practical recognition of this prerequisite involves paying attention to what energizes a man when he speaks, what topics bring light to his eyes, what dreams he returns to repeatedly, what values he's willing to defend even when it's difficult. Does his face change when he talks about his grandchildren's future? Does he have causes or ideas he's passionate about? Can you not only appreciate these passions, but genuinely engage with them? Equally important is whether he shows similar interest in your own deepest convictions and dreams. The man ready for love will want to understand what brings meaning to your life, what hopes animate your days, what questions keep you awake at night pondering. This mutual curiosity about each other's inner worlds creates the intimacy that transforms relationships into love stories. To cultivate shared vision and intellectual spiritual resonance, engage in conversations that explore each other's deepest dreams, values, and life goals. Listen actively. Ask thoughtful questions and show genuine curiosity about what matters most to him. Participate in activities or discussions that reflect his passions, whether it's philosophy, spirituality, or meaningful life projects, and share your own beliefs and aspirations authentically so he can connect with his inner world. Observe how he responds when you discuss long-term goals or existential questions. Mutual excitement and openness signal that a true partnership is forming. When we consider these three prerequisites together, emotional readiness, authentic respect, and shared vision, we begin to understand why love seems so mysterious yet follows such predictable patterns. They create what ancient wisdom traditions called the prepared heart, a man's whose inner landscape is ready not just for companionship, but for the profound transformation that genuine love brings to every aspect of existence.
What I've talked above remind me of something the Persian poet Hafez wrote 6 centuries ago. Even after all this time, the sun never says to the earth, "You owe me." Look what happens with a love like that. It lights the whole sky. The 3 prerequisites we've explored today create the conditions for precisely this kind of transformative love, one that illuminates rather than diminishes, that enhances rather than constrains. Men in our generation approach love differently than they did in youth, not because their capacity has decreased, but because they've learned to distinguish between surface attraction and soul-deep connection. They've discovered that true intimacy requires preparation, that lasting love demands foundation, that the heart must be ready before it can be given. Perhaps most importantly, understanding these prerequisites offers liberation from the confusion and self-doubt that plague so many relationships. When you recognize that a man's emotional unavailability often reflects his lack of readiness rather than your inadequacy, when you understand that his need for respect stems from deep psychological requirements rather than mere ego, when you see that intellectual spiritual connection is necessity rather than luxury, suddenly patterns that seemed mysterious become clear. For those currently in relationships, these insights offer a framework for deeper understanding and connection. Are you nurturing environments where emotional vulnerability feels safe? Do you genuinely respect and appreciate your partner's unique approaches and capabilities? These aren't techniques to apply, but qualities to cultivate, ways of being that honor both his humanity and your own. For those seeking new love, these prerequisites become wisdom for discernment. Rather than wondering why relationships fail to deepen, you can recognize when foundational elements are present or absent. Rather than trying to force feelings that aren't naturally arising, you can identify men who possess the readiness, appreciation, and vision necessary for genuine partnership. Have you noticed these patterns in your own relationships, or do you recognize these qualities in someone you care about? Drop your thoughts in the comments, like and share this video if it resonated, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel with notifications on so you won't miss more insights that can transform the way you love and connect. May you carry this understanding not as burden, but as gift, as clarity that helps you recognize when conditions are right for love to flourish and wisdom to wait when they're not.